Born Again to Live crew. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. It is a Monday, but it's a Thursday, but we're acting like it's a Monday or a Thursday. Welcome to my life, everybody.
Amy's confused. Let's take a moment and pray for Amy.
Dude, I'm so confused all the time. I never know what day it is. It is a Thursday on air. It's a Monday here at my house. I guess that's about as good as it's going to get today.
That's pretty close. We just had lunch, so it was a little confusing.
Yeah, it's a great lunch though. I'm fueled up, ready to go. We're going to talk about one of these people in the Bible that God uses that was just a kind of unexpected. When you say that, Eric.
Yeah, and he was very reluctant. He didn't really want to be there, didn't want to do that, and yet he did.
Yeah, and I think when you were talking about the Fallout shelter, I kind of alluded to the fact that we would be talking about this character because a lot of what you said about the Fallout shelter, how God gave you the plan, told you exactly what he wanted, how you were going to do it, what it was going to be named, and that you're slightly reluctant. I was like, this sounds like somebody else I know.
So, yeah, we're going to do a small series on Gideon. A pretty big biblical character that a lot of people talk about and know. But there's some depth to him that I don't think people really dig into. So we'll try to shed some light on my side or our side of what we think of him and what we are getting revealed to us by God.
All right. Sounds good.
So in the Old Testament world, we're going to Judges chapter 6. And so the first part of chapter 6 there talks about how the Midianites oppress Israel, and it's pretty rough. I mean, anytime they plant crops, basically somebody else comes in and takes the produce.
Yep.
So we're to the point where everybody is got Israel beat down because they're worshiping idols and just they're way off of where God wants them.
Absolutely.
So we're going to skip all the way down to verse 11, and that's where hopefully the tide of change starts to happen.
Well, and I'd like to point out, Eric, in this first little part, though, when it talks about it's not just Midian that's coming up against Israel, it is the Amalekites. And that is when we went back and we were studying, David and Saul many, many episodes ago. God told Saul to just get rid of the Amalekites altogether. They're kind of described in this first part of Judges 6 as like this swarm of locusts. They were an enemy of God's people, and Saul was told to wipe them out. And he never quite did, now did he?
No, they seem to be a pest all the way through.
They really do. You keep hearing about the Amalekites. Midian, on the other hand, they learn their lesson.
Yeah.
They learn their lesson. All right. So we're going to start Judges 6, verse 11. So it says, Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor. And Gideon said to him, Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian. And the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian, but do not I send you? And he said to him, Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And the Lord said to him, But I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man. And he said to him, If now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that it is you who is speaking with me. Please do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out my present and set it before you. And he said, I will stay till you return. So it's interesting, Eric, in that passage, it says an angel of the Lord, but then it kind of goes back and forth between the angel and God himself is the way that kind of reads, right? But of course, I guess the angel of the Lord is speaking on the Lord's behalf, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of where that confusion can come from sometimes.
Yeah. So it starts with Gideon. He's beating out wheat in a wine press, which means he's just completely hiding because the Midianites would have stole the wheat had he not, which just shows you where they're at this point. But yeah, he's in the tribe that's the smallest tribe in Manasseh, and he's the least of the family's house. So he's the youngest son.
Mhm.
Again, same thing that happens with David later, but
Yeah.
anyways, in true Gideon fashion, he says, "Hey, if it's really God, show me a sign.
Right.
Show me a sign." And so he goes away to bring back his offering to see if it's accepted by the Lord. And from there to the end of that chapter, or the end of that section, it talks about how he brings it, and then the angel of the Lord tells him how to take the meat and do everything that he's supposed to do to make an altar for the Lord. Which shows Gideon, hey, it is the Lord. Hey, I'm getting talked to by the angel of the Lord. And so many things that we do the same way when God calls us to do something. And same thing I do when God says something to me. And we talked a little in the Fallout shelter about how do you know if it's God? Trial and error, I guess. Like Gideon, I mean, he goes, hey, just, if it's you, show me. And
right.
That's what we do. It's, God, if it's really you, show me.
Right. But we talked about this as well, though. We also know God's character through his word. We know how he speaks to other people he has used in the stories of the Bible. So it's not like when God is speaking to us, we're not completely as clueless as Gideon. We do have things to go back to. And like you said, Eric, if it's God's voice, it will reflect his truths.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something completely like, I've never heard of this before, then maybe that's not God, because God is changeless. He says, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. So you got to line up what you think you're hearing from God with the truth of his word all the time.
And Jesus said that my sheep will know my voice. Mm-hmm. And that comes from the more time you hear him. I've talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
That husband and wife, I mean, honestly, if they're really close and they've been together for 50, 60 years, it doesn't matter where that husband or that wife is at, then most crowded room you could get in, and they're going to know each other's voice across the room. And that's the same with God. The more time you spend with him, the better you're going to know his voice, and the easier it's going to be like, all right, so that's you, God, and you want me to do what? Right. Instead of, if it's really you, show me. It'll cut down on the process and the time amount that we have to worry about if we can learn his voice and learn what he sounds like.
Yeah, so in the future, when he calls us to do something, especially like in that moment, we're not just, are you sure it's you, God? Like, no, we can just act. And, you got to give, we're going to give Gideon a little bit of slack here because, at this point in the story, Israel had kind of, it was, it entered the promised land, but all those people groups and all the things that they worshipped now became part. God was not just the one and only ruler in their world. So like Gideon's at this time and place in Israel's history where he's hearing about God. And of course, he's hearing his forefathers talk about, this God that drove them out of Egypt and away from slavery. But then he's also hearing about all these other, they have all these high places of worship throughout the country, these different gods. I'm sure he's also hearing about those stories as well. So it kind of doesn't surprise me that Gideon's like, okay, I need to make sure this is like our God, like our Yahweh, our Abba Father. Like, is it this God? Because there's so many other gods in this place that I find myself, right? So I don't know. I think he hasn't been surrounded, and Israel has not been deeply serving the one true God at this point in the story. So I'm gonna cut him a little bit of slack for being for testing God as much as he does in this story.
Well, I can understand. I mean, they thought God kind of abandoned them because I haven't seen the miracles, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's the first part where Gideon gets the first call. Then after he gives his offering and does what the angel Lord told him to do in building the altar, the last part there, I think it's 27. So Gideon took 10 men from among his servants and did as the Lord had said to him. But because he feared his father's household and the men of the city too much to do it by day, he did it by night.
Yeah.
So he had to build the altar, but he built it at night because he was afraid of, they were worshiping all these other gods and stuff, and he was afraid of what the people in the city were going to do to him. So he did it in secret, even though God called him to do it.
Well, what's cool is I was reading deeper into this story. So, he was told you have to dismantle like the altar of Baal. Well, the symbol, because everyone had to attribute, they needed something to worship and to see, like you were talking about before, Eric, about how we're the likeness of God. We are his image bearers. So God does not have an image other than his church and his people. But yeah, so in this case, the bull was the image of the god Baal. So he used a bull to dismantle.
Yeah.
To dismantle that altar. And then, he said to cut down the Asherah poles, which were all over the place as well. And something else that they worshipped. And so then they cut down the Asherah poles and then they burned that to then sacrifice and burn this bull. So like all that's going on. And then God's like, hey, and now I want you to build a temple to me. I'm the one that needs the place of worship, not these false gods. So I mean, he did what he was called to do, but much like threshing that wheat in the winepress, he did do it in a bit of a cowardly way.
Yeah. So do we want to read 28 through 32 there?
Sure.
I did my reading, so
okay.
I'll pass that over.
All right. Well, so now we get a little bit of you read that one verse. Good job, Eric. Okay, but you did say he was too afraid of his family and the men of the town to do it by day. So now we're going to find out the reason. And, he has good reason. Like, he wasn't stupid. So it says, when the men of the town rose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was broken down and the Asherah beside it was cut down, and the second bull was offered on the altar that had been built. And they said to one another, who has done this thing? And after they had searched and inquired, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, has done this thing. Then the men of the town said to Joash, bring out your son that he may die, for he has broken down the altar of Baal and cut down the Asherah beside it. But Joash said to all who stood against him, will you contend for Baal, or will you save him? Whoever contends for him shall be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him contend for himself, because his altar has been broken down. Therefore, on that day, Gideon was called Jerubbaal. I don't know. Is there two B's? Like, how do we say that, Eric?
Jerubbaal.
Jerubbaal. That is to say, let Baal contend with him, because he broke down his altar. So
I think that's one of the coolest responses in
yeah.
the entire Bible, when the father's standing there like, bring him out so we can kill him. He's like, are you going to argue for a god?
Right.
If he's God, can he not do it himself?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, that's almost up there with the Elijah standing on the top of the mountain with the 300 prophets of Baal going, what? Maybe he's asleep. He can't hear you. Talk louder.
Yeah, or as if he were leaving himself. That was one of the things he said too.
Yeah, those are two of my favorite parts of the Bible, probably, is when they're like, oh yeah, you got this God, but he can't hear you because he's asleep or he's peeing, just.
Yeah.
I love that. And this one here, like, what, you're going to ask a God to have a bunch of people stand up for him when he's supposed to be your God? Come on.
That's it.
And which is funny because he feared his father's household, but his dad's standing beside him saying, hey, listen.
Yeah.
Like, I got his back now.
Yep. Well, and it might let a little bit of insight into the family of Gideon. I think they were probably stronger believers than most of the people in the city, for his dad to say that about him, right? As opposed to just be like, yep, you're right, here you go. But no, that was wise words coming from an Israelite that did believe in the God that brought his forefathers out of Egypt, for sure. Okay.
So the end of that little section there through 35 basically sets up that the Amalekites and the Midianites and the people of the east, which they don't even give them a name, just the people, gathered together, and they crossed over and camped in the valley of Jezreel, and basically they were getting ready for a war with the Israelites. And so somebody sent out messengers to all of Israel and said, hey, come help us. We're going to get attacked. And so that sets up the end of the thing here, which we'll get into tomorrow more about the fleece, which is what most people know Gideon for.
Yeah.
But I want to talk just a little bit about if you're called by God and you know you're called by God. It's hard not to ask for a sign. It's hard not to say, are you sure? Because we are human enough that maybe we don't believe that God would use us. But he uses a lot of imperfect people to accomplish his perfect tasks. So I just wanted to say that Gideon, it may be the one person that's the most honest in the Bible, because he's right there with us all the time, that he says, hey, I'm not capable of doing this, so prove it. Prove that you really want me to do this. Prove that you want me to do this. And we'll see that as a common thread through the whole Gideon story is prove it.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we just need that validation. We need that encouragement, because it's scary out there. We know that sometimes our bold faith moves are going to have consequences. Like you and I talked about that conversation at lunchtime, Eric. You tell somebody like, hey, I think, this is the vision that God gave me for you. You share that with somebody, and then, there's this part of this check in our spirit that says, what if God doesn't come through now? And I do remember, like, one of the things that Jay told us during the Holy Spirit workshop is, like, you pray for things, you ask God to move, and, like, you always have to be ready for that no, because sometimes God just says no. And then other times he just dazzles you with his miraculous healings, his miraculous answers. And sometimes they're just very quiet answers to prayers. But yeah, I completely empathize with Gideon for sure.
So, like I said, this is just the start of it. We're going to go through a little bit more here, Gideon, but that sets the basis for tomorrow and on. So, thank you all.
See you tomorrow.
I'm born again.